Hi Fadila, how you doing today?
Hey Nelly, I'm doing well, and you? Lovely to
I'm
be.
doing great. Thank you so much for coming on board my show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Can you tell us about yourself, like your business journey so far? How has it been for you, Fadila?
I've been in business for almost 10 years. This year, September or November, will be 10 years.
Ooh, wow.
Um,
That's a
I
huge
start-
time. A
yeah,
decade.
time passes by very quickly.
Yes, it does.
Started I wouldn't say my first business, but let's say after I graduated from university, I worked in investment management for 2 years. And then after that, I hit burnout. Then I quit my job. And accidentally, I found an opportunity in the cross-border transfer space. And I started my first business after school with that. And subsequently, I also went into business consulting.
Okay.
Now I run the remittance business, informal. I have a co-working space, and I also have a media and community organization that is on a mission to make remote work more accessible to Africans. So my business journey has been full of ups and downs, just like I believe every other honest entrepreneur. We've had really great years and we've had like really shitty years. We've had moments where we felt we couldn't even move forward, but for one reason or the other, and we were able to gather the strength, or I was able to gather the strength to keep going. So,
Oh, wow. Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, wow. It's been such an experience for you. Can you like tell us about the time when everything really fell apart in your business or career? Like what really happened?
There are too many times. I swear to God, there are too many times. But I will talk about this specific incident that happened like 2 years ago. So 2 years ago,
Okay.
that was in October of 2023. I lost everything that I built. I had scaled
Ooh.
my first business was the cross-border money transfer business.
Oh,
I started
wow.
with $100 and I built our revenues to over $50 million. We
50
were,
billion.
yes, 50 million.
Wow.
That was not our profit, that was just the revenue. So our profit was
Okay.
around $750,000 year on year
Oh,
gross.
I
But
see.
yes, but then in 2023, in October, I've been frauded many times. But in 2023, I was frauded the last money that we actually had. This is like
Mm.
6 plus fraud. I wouldn't mention that amount.
Okay.
And I faced a very terrible situation because part of the money that was frauded belonged to a customer. About $65,000 belonged to a customer.
Oh my God.
And so I was faced with that. And also beyond the fraud, there were some poor hiring decisions and wrong partnerships. I went into a partnership that I shouldn't have gone
Okay.
in the first place. And overnight, I went from thriving to barely surviving. In fact, I wasn't having even food to eat. I will not lie to you.
Oh
It
my
felt
God.
like my entire identity unraveled, and it was something that
That's hitting rock bottom.
yeah, I did hit rock bottom. It wasn't just about the fraud. What the people who did the fraud didn't know was that we were already in a bad situation.
Hmm.
We were already in a bad situation. We had lost more than $100,000 before that incident in net profit that we had gotten. And then this massive fraud happened. I'm talking about, I don't want to mention the amount, but it's in hundreds of thousands of US dollars. And the fact that when the fraud happened, I was already battling with cancer.
Oh my
I
God.
had a
That's
diagnosis.
a lot.
Yes, that was a lot. But one thing I always say is that it's important to have a support system. For me,
Yes.
during those times, my mother and one of my very good friends, Jason, were my support system. They gave me the emotional support. I had to move back home with my mom in Nigeria and then literally started to work on my health. When I got
Mm.
better in 24, that's when I started rebuilding the whole business. So,
Mm.
yeah,
That must have been a
like,
very tough phase for you.
no, it was very tough. I was crying every night
Oh
because I
my
felt
God.
like how can I move from a woman or a lady who has everything? I had a house, my house was burnt down. I didn't even talk about that.
Oh,
I had a car
that's a
accident,
lot.
and
Like, oh my God, I can't even imagine myself in that situation. I don't know what I would do in it.
oh, you will survive unless you want to commit suicide. You will survive. You survive. So I had
Wow.
had accident. I just got back from the US from a diagnosis telling me that I was going to die
Oh,
because I had stage 4 colon cancer.
oh
It
my
was just
God.
too many things at the time. It was like the wrong timing for them to do that fraud. So I
Mm.
felt, in fact, I was staying with a friend of mine because that time I had let go of my apartment in Ghana because I used to live in Ghana. I lived in Ghana for like more than 10 years.
Oh,
And I was in a really bad spot when that fraud happened. And then on top of all the health crisis, plus losing my house, losing my car, and then now losing like the last thing I had. So it was a lot. It was a lot. But one thing I've learned from that experience is that they said just like success leave clues, failures leave clues. When
yes.
you're working with some people, whether it's a business partner or an employee or
Yeah.
a customer, you have to take clues from their previous actions.
Yes.
Yes, you have to take clues from their previous actions because it leaves a sign. When something is about to happen, it leaves a sign. It could be that maybe you had a business partner who he was falling out with everybody, trying to get everybody out of your life, whether that's your employees that you have been with for 5, 10, 15 years. Or it could be that it was a partner whom you were in a relationship with and that person started to just act weird. So there were signs. And I believed in people potential more than I believed in their patterns.
Oh,
But now I believe more in people's pattern than I believe in their potential.
oh,
So yeah, that was that experience without going into too much details.
oh, wow. That's a lot. That's
Yeah.
so much that you do. So, but did you actually see these signs before it hit the fan, or did it blindside you completely?
The fraud itself, I didn't see signs. However, actually, what happened was that a customer of ours, a Chinese guy, Mr. Lee or whatever the fuck his name is, excuse me. So,
Oh,
he was a customer that we have been doing business with for I think 3 or 4 years
okay.
on WhatsApp because we usually do most of our business through WhatsApp. People don't need
Okay.
to come to our office to do that. He contacted me and he said, "Oh, I have USDT and I want Ghana cedis."
Hmm.
And then he says, "Oh, somebody will come and bring the USDT. Will come to my office to transfer the USDT to my account."
Okay.
So I called my business partner at the time, and I said, "Oh, we have a supply. We have a supply of USDT. So get somebody who will buy some of it." So he got somebody that wanted to buy, I think, $65,000 equivalent of the money from part of what we were buying.
Hmm.
So they sent that money to I'm not going to mention people's name. One of my, let me call him my boss's mobile money account because
Oh,
he had bigger capacity. So I went to the bank, took out like all of the money, literally like all of the money. What we were left with was less than $5,000.
oh my God.
Yes. Took out all the money, went to the bank, got the CD. This is like millions of CDs. And then went to Accra Market. While I was at my boss's office, the customer called and said the person who's supposed to come and bring the USD says he can't come there because it's a rowdy place. If we can take the money to him, so I was worried. I told my boss, I said, this is what this guy says, but I don't think we should take the money to him. So my boss now asked, he said, "Oh, how much are you going to make from the transaction?" And I told him the amount. It was in excess of 20 million naira equivalent. And then he says, "Oh, if that's the case, then let me send you with somebody on a motorbike to go there." So I did see the signs. I
Okay.
didn't know that it was going to be a fraud, but something in me was like, don't take that money there. But then
Hmm.
because I had somebody else asking me to take the money there, and then they gave me somebody else to go with me, I thought it was safe.
Oh,
So I saw the signs. Then secondly, also the fraud didn't just happen by itself. It wasn't just the Chinese guy that did the fraud. There was somebody inside our business that was involved in the fraud, and
OMG.
I had seen that pattern before, but it was for smaller amounts,
Yeah,
like $1,000 here, two
that's a
thousand
whole
there.
lot.
Yes, but so right now, uh, I would say that I saw the signs, but I didn't know that it was going to be on this transaction
Okay.
because the day that thing happened, I literally took, I almost went mad, literally. I
Hmm.
usually wear scarf or the hijab. I took out my scarf. I took out my wrapper. I was only having my underskirts. It
Ah,
was like I stopped my mind because
ah,
they also tried to beat me to death at the point where the fraud happened before the police came. So it was, I did see the signs, but it wasn't, I didn't expect that a fraud would happen with that particular transaction. And unfortunately, that fraud happened. And it wasn't just about losing our money, because if you lose your money, you can make the money back. Money
Yes.
is not difficult to make. You
Customers
can make
money
the
as
money
well.
back.
Hi.
But there was somebody's money inside, and already business was very slow.
Hmm.
So I had to deal with the customer whose money was part. I think that very day we gave him back like $10,000, and then we're owing like $55,000. We are still paying that money back. We are probably paying like $45,000 right now. We are owing like $20,000 till this day that I speak to you. So it was, I did see the signs, but I ignored my intuition. And
Hmm.
that's things that I have learned now to listen to.
Yeah.
Whenever you're doing business, it doesn't matter if it is forex, money transfer, or you are buying products and selling, or it is e-commerce. If you have a huge transaction, in fact, not even a huge transaction, if you have any transactions, check in with your intuition first before
Yeah.
you, don't listen to what other people will say. Because if I hadn't listened to what my boss at the time has said, I would have saved all that money. I
Hmm.
wouldn't have been in debt. And
Yes.
and then also, if I had taken action on my partner at the time, who later when I found out was involved in the fraud, I wouldn't have had to deal with this massive loss and then now having to start over
Yeah.
after almost 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
to answer your question, yes, I did see the signs.
Wow. I lost money 3 weeks ago. And it's nothing compared to what you like. I was depressed. Like I wasn't myself for like 2 weeks straight. So I'm just trying to like imagine being in your shoes with everything else going on in your personal life, your health and all that. Oh God, that's a lot. That's a
I
lot.
was
And I
yeah,
can't say that you're a very strong woman, Fadila. You're
I
very
wouldn't say the
strong.
strength comes from me, but I would say that God has been my anchor. You
Okay.
know, there have been many nights, many nights that contemplated taking my own life when that thing happened.
Oh
There have
my
been many nights where I went 3, 4 days, I couldn't sleep. And I'm a kind of person that if I don't get 8 hours of sleep, I'm just hysteric all over the day. So
God.
it's the strength didn't come from me. I would say that God has been my anchor, and I borrowed from his strength, because in times like that where literally everything that you have built for 8, 9 years just comes down the drain. It's like they just take all your profit,
Hmm.
and we are talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, almost $1 million.
That's a lot.
They take all everything. Then you start thinking, 2014 when I started this business, or 2015 when I started this business, this is how much money I started with. So all my effort, all my savings,
Everything.
all the business savings itself just went down the drain. And then one of the things that I don't know if you're going to ask me a question about mistakes, but yeah, I'll let you continue the interview.
No, you can continue. Just I would
Yes.
like to know the mistakes. Let's let the conversation just flow.
Yes. One of the things that I learned from that experience was, one, most entrepreneurs, we usually focus on growth and not protection. We neglect the frameworks that we need to protect ourselves and our business. We
Yeah.
usually ignore our intuition.
Hmm.
We must, I don't care if it's a $1 billion or a $1 trillion business. If you're a
Yeah.
business owner or you are the key decision maker in the business, you must work with your intuition. You must learn to listen to your intuition. That's number one.
Yes.
And two, you must stress test. A lot of times when we're in business, in fact, for the almost 8 years that I was in business after that year, I'd never done stress tests. So you
Hmm.
have to do what is the worst case scenario.
No.
So how do you do this? So for example, let's say you run a business and maybe your total capital is like $50,000.
Okay.
Let's just say is it like $50,000. And then maybe your major customer, and then maybe on a monthly basis you're making like, let's say, $4,000 to $5,000. And out of that $4,000 to $5,000, maybe $3,000 comes from a specific customer. You need to do a stress test to find out, okay, if that customer stops giving you business, can you cover your overheads? What is going to happen?
Yeah.
You also have to do a stress test that, what if you lose all of your capital? Are you still able to continue doing the business or
Hmm.
not?
Yeah.
And and then thirdly, also, one of the mistakes that we make is making decisions by ourselves.
Hmm.
Like from that time till today, I wouldn't say I'm in a decision paralysis state, but now
Okay.
if I have any major transaction, I'm not fast with it.
Hmm.
And the reason why I'm not fast with it is not because I don't want to create a good customer experience, or I don't want to serve my customer in the fastest possible way, but it is because I want to protect my assets. I want to protect my capital. I,
Hmm.
I lost so much money that my hair was falling out.
Oh my God.
Literally, my hair was falling out. So have a group of people, or even if you're a small business, have what they call the board of directors, two, three people who are not part of the business, who are
Yeah.
people who have built their own businesses in similar industries or in different industries that you can run to ask for permission before you do certain things, whether
Hmm.
it's take money to a customer or deliver goods before you are getting paid.
Yeah.
Don't take on more than you can handle. So
Okay.
that's also third mistake. Then the fourth mistake that most of us African business owners, and this is not just Nigeria or Ghana, it's in South Africa, it's in Kenya, that we do is that we don't have insurance.
Okay.
We don't have business insurance. If I had business insurance, I'll just go to the insurance company and collect all that my money that has come back. But I
Yes.
have transactional insurance or it's just like banks. Banks have depositors insurance, national depositor insurance. You are a business, whether you're selling clothes or you're selling food or you are selling currencies or you are selling gold, you need to have insurance. So
Yes.
we need to make sure that we have insurance for every aspect of the business, not just fire, not just theft, but also fraud, but also what do you call it, espionage that may happen from within your company, so that when this kind of things happen, you can have something to fall back on. I'm
Yes.
usually not the person that talks about things to fall back on, but insurance is very important. Like right now, I'm in the US. I
Okay.
moved here after the whole madness happened, and I finished fighting cancer last year, and then I moved here earlier this year. I've been coming here for more than 10 years. If this happened in the US, I wouldn't even be talking about it because it wouldn't be paining me. I'll just go to insurance company and collect my money back. I may
Yeah.
not collect all of the money, but at least I'll collect 80% of that money. So
Yeah.
that's another thing. And then also I want people to think about the fact that risk is not just financial. It's relationship, it's reputation, and it's operational. So you
Okay.
have to think about, for example, when this incident happened, we had to do damage control. Like
Hmm.
we immediately we called the customer whose money was part of the money that was frauded to come to the police station where I was with the other guys who were involved in the fraud, even though they couldn't find a Chinese guy and whatever. And then immediately I had to give $10,000
Hmm.
back because we had the customer $65,000. It was part of the money that was frauded. I had to give them $10,000 instantly. And then I
Hmm.
had to agree on what is the repayment terms.
Yeah.
And also, don't take on more than you can handle.
Yeah.
You can't go and commit, okay, $65,000, $65,000. In this business environment that we are in, whether it's in America or in Nigeria or in Ghana, the economy is slowing down. You can't go and commit, oh, I'll pay $20,000 every year. Is
Yeah.
your profit going to reach $20,000? Maybe it will not do that.
It was.
So think about, and then also from another perspective that I want to talk about when it comes to the risk, is that whether you're dealing with a key employee or a business partner, you need to watch what their patterns are. What do I mean by this?
Okay.
So let's assume you have a business partner who maybe recently came into the business when the business blew up. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
And then when the business partner came into the business that blew up, then the person didn't contribute any capital to the business. Then they say, oh, now we have to start sharing profit 50-50. Maybe because out of excitement of what they are going to do, then you agree on sharing profit 50-50.
Okay.
Then the person now later on, maybe after 2-3 months, starts saying, oh, this person that you have worked with for 10 years or 5 years, I don't want to work with him again.
Hmm.
Why you don't want to work with him again? Or maybe he just started picking fights with every single key employee who was part of the people who made the business what it is.
Hmm.
Or maybe the person starts to disrespect everybody in the team, or
Yeah.
starts to behave like as if he's now the Oga, literally, and
Hmm.
start to boss you around. You need to pay attention to people's behaviors and their patterns. And
Okay.
then when you pay attention to people's behavior and their patterns, because one of the things that happened was that when this issue happened, okay, now we're owing $65,000. I was sharing profit with my business partner 50-50. Now we had a loss, and he doesn't want to pay 50-50 of the loss. He's asking me to take up all of the expenses. He's
Wow.
only going to pay 20%. And I'm like,
Wow.
How can if
No,
when we
no,
were making
that's
money,
too small.
yes, when we were making money, we were sharing profit. We were sharing the profit 50-50. So now that we have a loss, and then you're asking me, oh, is there another money somewhere? This is all
Ah.
the money. The money don't go. So what are you talking about? So you have
God,
to pay
human
attention
beings.
to, yes, greed, greed.
That's
And also another thing that is important to do is to conduct thorough due diligence. This is
okay.
one of the main mistakes that we made as a business. And for me as a leader, with that customer, even though I'd been doing business with that customer for years, I never had copy of their ID. I only knew their office, which was in Spentex in Accra. I didn't know where he lives. I don't have a copy of his ID. So make sure that any transaction that you are doing more than the capacity that you can handle. So for example, let's say right now my capacity will be $10,000. In fact, $5,000. If I'm doing transaction anything less than 5,000, anything more than $5,000, I'm going to ask for a copy of the ID of the person that I'm dealing with, so
Yeah.
that in case things go south, you have an ID that you can refer to.
Yeah.
And then two, also, you have to verify the identity of that person.
Yeah.
I remember the day that that incident happened. I kept calling this guy on video call, and he wasn't picking the video call, but he was calling me back on audio.
Wow.
Yes. So you have to pay attention to the little things. But in the nutshell, get insurance for your business, listen to your intuition, make sure that you stress test to ensure that your business can be able to take the shock.
Okay.
And four, make sure that you pay attention to people that you're working with or your business partners' patterns. Don't be so optimistic about people. Till today, I have a boyfriend. He always says, Fadila, you're always so optimistic about everything. I'm like, well, I like to see the rainbow in the cloud.
Yeah.
Sometimes in business, you have to see the fire in the cloud. You have to see people for who they are, not who you want them to become.
Yes.
And then you have to make sure that you conduct due diligence. Have a KYC form that every customer, I don't care if it is Tinubu or it is Domama that is doing business with you, he must fill that form. If he
Yeah.
is not willing to fill that form, forget it.
Yes. Hmm.
And then last but not the least, I think I've given like five mistakes.
Okay.
Have a group of people, whether it's board of directors you want to call them, or just advisors that you run things with before you make major financial transactions or decisions. So that's the common mistakes that I would say.
Thank you so much. That has actually answered my question on how businesses can, mitigate this risk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's go to the next question.
Yes. So, but I would like to know how we're able to bounce back. Like, how has business been like recent?
Mm. So I wouldn't say that I've bounced back entirely, but I'm
Okay.
bouncing back. So the
Oh,
first thing that I did was I took note of everything that happened and
okay.
I learned from my mistakes. Then I diversified our product offerings. So right now, for example, we run a co-working space at our main office that we have in Accra, and that has been like one of the major sources of income because the remittance and the cross-border business has the transactions volumes have literally gone down over the years because of
Okay.
increased competition and the fact that we didn't also make a quick decision to go digital. And
Hmm.
then also another way that I've bounced back is I've gotten a mentor because with businesses, most of us as business owners, we don't usually uh, we don't usually get mentors. We just work on our own. We don't work with other people. We don't learn from other people's
Okay.
mistakes.
Yeah.
I want to talk more a little bit about. I'll answer the question, but I want to talk a
Okay.
little bit more about taking account of what
Okay.
has happened.
Okay.
When something like this happens, whether it is $2,000 fraud or $1 million fraud or $100 million fraud, you have to first take a moment to be honest with yourself, to accept your mistakes,
Okay.
replay the situation, and write down what your mistakes are.
Hmm.
Write what you did wrong, what you did right. Write down what is at stake. Okay, relationship is at stake, business reputation is at stake. How can I maintain relationship with a customer whose money was part of the fraud without making them feel like I don't want to pay their money back? How
Yeah.
do I make sure that next time when I'm doing transactions less than if it was at that time, if I'm doing transactions less than 100, more than $100,000, I just don't make the decisions on the spot. I take my time. How do I make sure that I ensure that the customer comes to my office all the time if they're doing transactions more than $100,000 at a time?
Okay.
Reflect on your mistakes so that you don't repeat them. And
Okay.
then also, one of the ways that I bounce back is becoming radically honest with myself. I reviewed myself, I reviewed my systems, I reviewed my relationship. And I stopped pretending that I had it all figured out. And I allowed myself to grieve the loss.
Okay.
Because if you don't grieve, just like let's say somebody, father die, or your mother dies, or your husband dies, you have to grieve. So I grieve the loss, the loss that had happened. I grieve the loss of the money. I grieve the loss of the convenience. I grieve the loss of the luxury that I was enjoying. And I grieve all of that loss. Then I choose to rebuild slowly but strategically.
Okay.
I also leaned into what I knew worked, which was community, clarity, courage. I also worked on diversifying our product offerings, like I mentioned. So now we run a co-working space and we have like 100% occupancy in our
Okay.
co-working space. So that brought new revenue that we are also using right now to repay back the customer.
Okay.
And I also focused on my second project, which is the Africans Living Fully project, which is focused on training remote ready talent and creating platforms like the Remote Career Summit to connect African professionals with global opportunities. And I didn't take any bank loans. Thank God, none of that money was any bank loans, so I didn't have to.
That would have been worse.
Maybe they will have carried my other house that I have in Nigeria, and
That
they'll
would have
put me.
been worse. Thank God.
I didn't take any bank loans. All our growth was organic. Also, another thing that I have done to bounce back or to be bouncing back is I've gotten smarter with money. I've
Okay.
gotten smarter with boundaries, and I know who I allow into my inner cycle. Previously, I didn't have boundaries, but now I have boundaries in my personal life and I have boundaries in my professional lives. I audit people from a spiritual point of view before I ever engage with them in a physical point of view.
Mm.
And I also
Nice.
say that the bounce back hadn't been linear. And I want to also explain a little bit about what I mean by I audit people spiritually before I audit them physically. Before I engage with somebody as a new business partner or as an agent for my business or as any key stakeholder, I don't even think, I listen to how I feel about them.
Okay.
I listen to how I feel about them because I trust my feelings more than I trust my thinking.
Okay.
Because my intuition is in how I feel and not what I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I also allow myself the grace to not make decisions in a haste
Yes.
and to take my time to see, okay, let me see this person outside of work. What does he do? Is this person a woman? Or is this woman a prostitute or a show? Or is this person is a covert, this covert slay queens?
Yeah.
Or
Baddies.
is this person take care of his wife? Or
Yeah.
wife moving all around trying to get money to feed the kid? So
Hmm.
I take my time. I don't make decisions in a rush anymore. I
Okay.
take know the person and not from the person alone. And I
Okay.
also have references. I asked for references in previous places that they had worked, with people that they had worked, with people that they had fallen out with, to get the clues on how to deal with them or whether to allow them into my business or not.
Okay.
There
Okay.
were days I wanted to give up, but I anchored myself with God, with purpose, and I started to
Hmm.
show up in. I remember that after the whole incident, I had a season where for like 5 or 6 months, I wasn't doing anything.
Hmm.
My staff, which are like 2 or 3 people right now, that were in charge of the remittance, were the ones that were taking care of the customers. I wasn't doing anything. I was just crying and eating and going for a walk and
Okay.
bed and writing and writing and writing and writing.
Okay.
You have to allow yourself to grieve, but you have to anchor yourself with purpose and
Hmm.
start showing up gradually. I am not as active as I used to be, and
Okay.
I don't have any guilt about it. I'm
Okay.
now coming back to who I am, to doing the things that I love. And even when things get messy, I always turn the pain into purpose. I
Hmm.
always turn
Yeah.
the pain programs. I always turn the pain into new partnerships, into new possibility for myself and for the other people that I serve. So I hope this answers your question.
Yes, yes, it does. That was quite deep. Thank you
Yes.
so much. I understand that you have another meeting in the next 5 minutes, so we'll
Don't,
just wrap up.
don't
We'll
worry
just
about it.
okay. We'll just wrap up. I have one final question for you, though. I just what about startups? People who want to start a business and they are scared to make losses because I've had interactions with people that have said I've had losses like personally and I can't deal with like business losses. Like what that final advice you would give to startups in terms of how to like I know you've mentioned a few, but I think there's still like more if you have like more key points that you could, especially for those who haven't had business experiences and just want to like invest. There are people that make investment mistakes. There are people that are not properly guided. You mentioned okay, one getting a mentor and all that, but how can one enter a business without the fear of losses?
There's no way that you can enter business without a fear of loss. Whether you like it or not, you are going to lose. And the amount of loss that you have determines the amount of success that you're going to have.
Deep.
For me, I see loss as an opportunity for us to grow. So don't be paralyzed by the fear of loss.
Okay.
Because whether you start a business or not, you are not going to know who you are going to become, what you can be able to get, how much you can be able to earn without starting the business. So you need to go ahead to start. But I'm
Oh,
going to give some guidelines on how to start. So you
okay.
have to start small. You start small, you test, and then don't just go ahead to just launch a business.
Okay.
Don't invest everything upfront. So let's assume somebody has 1 million naira and they want to start a business. They should not carry all that to 1 million to start. Maybe they can carry 100,000 or 200,000 naira to start. And
Okay.
then two, find your first customers, your real customers. This is how I started. I started my business, remember, in 2015 with $200. Is that $200 and reinvesting the profits that led us to having hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay.
So next thing you want to do is to find the customers that will pay you.
Hmm.
Real customers. Get their feedback about what you are doing. Get them to participate to buy your product or services or whatever. Refine before you pour your money into. And you don't need a fancy office. You
Okay.
just need that people will pay you. So you
Okay.
can start an online business. And also start what you know. Don't go and, oh, they say cryptocurrency is what is going to make you go and invest your money
Following the
into Bitcoin.
bandwagon.
Yeah, don't do that. Start small. And
Yeah.
then two, also expect losses early, but don't normalize chaos.
Oh, okay.
Losses aren't always to lose something doesn't mean that you are failing. They are
Hmm.
part of the learning curve. But
Okay.
consistent confusion, unclear goals, poor record keeping are red flags. Know the
Okay.
difference between your growing pain and self-sabotage.
Okay.
So be afraid of losses. Then
Okay.
another thing also say is to separate your emotions from your numbers. Just
Hmm.
because it's a dream, yes, doesn't mean that it is profitable.
Hmm.
Track your income, track your expenses, track your revenue, track your time. If
Okay.
you're not making money, figure out a way to make money. If it's not going to make money, drop that business idea and move on to the next one.
Okay. Okay.
And
Wow.
then last but not the least, I can just highlight some of the other things.
Okay.
Don't scale what is not working. Too many startups waste money and time trying to grow things that are not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then also invest in financial literacy and contracts. You
Okay.
have to, as a business owner, understand how money works,
Okay.
understand cash flow, understand taxes, understand how to create uh, great customer experience, understand how you can be able to manage your money, understand and always have written agreements with your friends. A
Okay.
lot of loss comes from being too trusting or
Okay.
being too embarrassed to ask questions. So don't be too embarrassed to ask questions. And
Okay.
then last but not the least, have an exit plan or a pause plan. It's okay to stop, to reassess, or even to shut down a business that is not working.
Okay.
It's also okay to if the business is working and maybe your feelings are a little bit hurt, get somebody else to take over to start working on what you're working on while you take your time to pause. And then
Okay.
also, when you are building a business, decide, okay, am I building this business for profitability or am I building this business to sell the business?
Hmm.
That's one too many things that most businesses, including my first business that I started, I didn't had the plan. I just wanted it to be profitable. I had no business raising venture capital fund or doing any of these things. So know what kind of business you want to build. And
Oh,
then when you know what the end is from the start, you'll be able to get there faster.
okay. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so
So
much. Thank you so much, Fadila.
any other last questions?
No,
Thank
that's fine now.
thank
I
you for
I
having me.
have learned a lot.
Mm,
I'm listening
I'm
to you,
happy.
and I believe that a lot of people would learn from this. Thank you
Hmm.
so much. Thank you so much.
It's
Thank you
my
so
pleasure. Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
much. You too have a great day. Bye.
Bye. Bye.